My next guest is one of our finest actors working today, and he just happens to also be a dog. Please welcome to the Funny or Die Vault the star of the upcoming How Will You Know, Senzu. Now, I've only said this to a couple guests so far, but can I give you a Milk-Bone biscuit? You're so cute.
Dog to English translation. Of course, you're too kind. Delicious, thank you.
Now, what we do on the show is go back into the Funny or Die Vault to look back at sketches that inspire us. So, which one did you pick?
I'm a dog, so I see in black and white. But when I saw this sketch, it was like I was watching it in full color. It's a little sketch called Big Dog.
So, what about this sketch spoke to you?
Walter gave such an incredible performance that showed me the type of comedic actor I wanted to be.
So you saw this video and you decided to pursue a career in show business. Then what?
I was making sketches with my friends while I was working as a dishwasher in a restaurant.
Wait, they let dogs wash dishes?
We're good at licking the plates.
And how did you get from there to where you are now?
One step at a time. And with my little legs, that was a lot of steps. First, I had small roles as dog licking self in background and dog on walk that finds body, and just kept working my way up.
All right, so tell us about How Will You Know?
Yes, it's a campaign in the style of a really sweet and smart romantic comedy. I actually brought the faux trailer.
All right, let's take a look.
I think I'm supposed to give you this?
That was great. What were the vibes like on set?
Everyone was so supportive. It was like being with a really great fetch partner. You always know if you threw them a ball, they'd bring it right back.
All right, so I gotta know, were there any pranks on set?
Let's just say from time to time, I would leave surprises in my co-star's shoes.
Senzu, did you poop in their shoes?
No, Marcos, get your head out of the gutter. I'd leave them Milk-Bone biscuits.
Well, it's a great trailer from a very good boy.
Thank you, thank you. Faux trailer, but thank you.
Now, is there anything you'd like to say to aspiring dog actors out there?
It can feel like success is like chasing your own tail, but if you put in the work, the world will rub your belly and behind your ears.
Beautiful. Thanks for being here, Senzu.
Anytime.
I think
Yeah.
eventually real art always, I was in Paris 2 weeks ago and I went to see the Mona Lisa and the Venus de
Subtle
Milo.
flex, yeah.
Yes, a flex, but the line was around the corner.
Yeah.
Nobody was like, yo, who is this bitch with no arms?
Hey, hot idiots. My name is Marcos Gonzalez, and this is Inside the Funny or Die Vault. We're going to take a look back at classic Funny or Die videos and talk internet comedy and culture from then to now. My guest today is a comedian, writer, and actress who you can see in her new hour's special Fighting Words, Aida Rodriguez. Welcome to the Funny or Die Vault.
Thank you.
Now, I have a ton of questions for you about your career and your life and everything that you've done comedy-wise, but before we jump into that, I want to tackle the video you chose, which is Idiots with Zoe Saldana and Kate Bosworth. So for everybody listening and watching who haven't seen it or haven't seen it in a while, basically the idea is a guy's at a bar. He's talking to the bartender, who's Janine Garofalo, and these two women walk in, Zoe Saldana and Kate Bosworth, obviously beautiful, and he wants to talk to them, but Janine Garofalo is really quick to say, hey, I think they talk like babies. Mm-hmm. And they do talk like babies. They talk like like 2-year-old babies. They're dubbed over. And then there's this double standard because minutes later, 2 really hot men walk in and Janine Garofalo is really into it and they also are dubbed over by babies.
What's your favorite movie? My favorite movie, Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
So my first question, obviously, is why did you choose this video?
Honestly, first of all, I thought it was funny. It was relatable at my time where I was in stand-up and some of like the bashing that I was getting for wearing dresses and being more feminine in stand-up. Also, Zoe Saldana's in it. She's Afro-Latina. She's Puerto Rican and Dominican, just like me, and I've always been a big fan of hers. So I never saw her be funny like that. She's always in these serious roles, so it was refreshing. Even when she was in Guess Who with Bernie Mac and Ashton Kutcher, she was like the straight guy, you know. So
Yeah, and the sketch is like the star-studded power in that sketch is
Yeah.
crazy. Like front to back, everyone's like a heavy hitter. I was curious too. Was there any like sort of relation to like the baby talk of it all? Because like I know I've dated people, and they obviously don't talk like 2-year-old babies, but there's definitely been that like you know, and it always kind of like was like what's going on here? I was wondering if have you ever had to deal with that? Was that ever
no,
like
I
a
don't.
thing?
I don't think. Well, I can't speak on behalf of
Yeah.
all women. Maybe some of them do, but where I come from,
The baby talk of it
my
all?
home, I
Just
don't
wipe
want
it
a
away.
man
What
that
about
talks
when
like a
people
baby.
talk to their dogs though? Is that a thing?
I mean, I wish I could hear what the dogs are thinking, because I do think that dogs think we're idiots.
Yeah, they're like I'm
And
good on that dog.
I really
Yeah.
wish I could just hear what the dog is thinking when
Yeah.
you're being condescending to a dog.
So this video came out back in 2007. What was your life like then? Were you already in comedy? Were you pursuing it? What was it like?
It was the beginning of my comedy career.
Oh, no
It was
way.
the very beginning. And yeah, it was a time where comedy was very different. A single tweet could not ruin your life in 2007. You know, it wasn't. It was just a time where stand-up was really kind of. It was an exclusive group of people that were doing stand-up. There weren't a lot of women, not a lot of women of color, and certainly Latinas. I think Angela Johnson at the time was the biggest Latina in stand-up. She had done the videos that had gone viral, and that kind of was a launch pad for her comedy career. So it was just a very interesting time.
Yeah. How did you feel about like video content creation at the time? Because I feel like it was just kind of getting big. Were you like down for it? Were you like against it? Was it like?
Oh no, I used to watch all the videos. Pearl was my. I
OG,
posted that the other day
yeah.
on my Instagram page, and people who had never seen it, like younger people, were like, "What is this magic?" And I'm like, "You were probably Pearl's age when it came out." You know, the thing is, I love film, and I used to look at those videos like they were short films rather than, you know, sketches or whatever. So I always thought they were like, that one was so brilliant, you know, like watching all of them to me was to see these actors do these little short films. And I've always been an advocate of.
Yeah. Did you try to make any
Content
back
creation.
then, or was it more so just like watching at the time?
I don't think back then I was making videos. I was too busy trying to learn how to write a set
Yeah,
and
that's
not
fair.
bombing.
Yeah.
That's the
Also
the
important,
one
yeah.
objective when you start doing stand up is not like bombing is normal, but just if you bomb all the time, you might want to rethink it. Yeah, no, I have made videos, but I wouldn't say at the beginning of my career I was really focused on stand up.
So starting at the beginning of your career, what was your like first set? When did you kind of like realize like, oh, I want to be a stand-up, or was it?
The first time I bombed.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. The first time I did comedy, I did really well, which is a very common story for comedians because the adrenaline, the eagerness, the desire to do stand up. And it was in Arizona. It was with this Jamie Foxx crew. I had been on the Foxhole, his radio. He had a radio network, and I did a show. And they said, "Ida, you are a stand-up. You should do the show." And they don't know that I had never been on stage before.
Oh no.
So I went to Arizona. It was like a big venue. It was all these other comedians. They paid me, which was unheard of. They flew me out, which is very bad habit to try to set for somebody who's never gonna make money again for like another 8 years.
Yeah.
And I did really well. When I came back, I went to a show at the Laugh Factory where they had this opening. They have a set for new comedians where you go up and do 3 minutes, and there, I died 1,000 deaths on that stage. And that was the day when I was like, I want to do this. I think I can conquer this. I didn't like how that felt, and I have to figure out how to really get the laughs for real jokes, not the laughs that I got in Arizona. So.
Yeah. And did you have like an inspiration? Was there like a person that you watched to sort of like, oh, okay, like if I want to structure it a certain way, this is the way to do it, or like anybody you just looked up to at the time?
Oh yeah, Carlin and Pryor have always been my heroes, even today. You know, George Carlin's content and Richard Pryor's cadence, like those two things had always, you know, made me laugh. And so those are the people that I look to.
Yeah, those are OG. And then When you started, I know you said you like bombed the first time. What was like the first like moment where you were like, yo, I could actually do this like long term?
You know, even in that bombing, like I started off really well. I think I had the natural knack for writing a good joke. I just, you know, comedy is not just about telling jokes, which a lot of people think, especially because of the internet. Stand up is an art and it is a science, a skill. And, you know, the artistic part is where you see a Patton Oswalt versus a Bill Burr, and everybody has their own artistic style. They are very, people have a stylized way of doing their own form of stand up. There's a science, you know, because the objective is to make people laugh. You know, you hear people complaining about comedians now that are like, oh my God, I just feel like I got a lecture. Like, I just wanted to hear a joke. So, you know, there's a way to be able to, whether you're a storyteller or a joke teller, the objective is a laugh and getting to that laugh, which some people have been pushing back against now because they want to turn stand-up into whatever they want it to be.
Storytelling and things
Yeah,
like
but
that.
it's just
or like,
fine.
crowd
But
work in general.
stand-up
yeah.
is, people pay their money. They have a 2-drink minimum. They get babysitters. They pay for parking. They want to laugh. They had worked all week and they need a laugh. So I think it's just about really understanding what all of that is. And for me, that was very important.
Yeah. And when you did start like honing your voice, did you ever feel, I know you just mentioned it before, like there was a wall with the audience because obviously like you're a woman, but also you're Afro-Latina, you know, those are pretty big obstacles I know in the comedy world. Did you ever feel like, oh, this is like, I can tell the audience has this wall up with me?
You know, I used to think that. I think a lot of people will say that, listen, if you go in front of an audience of people who hate Irish people, and you're an Irish comic, you're gonna get some opposition. Of course, that's
part
some
of it.
real stuff. I think also though, being funny is undeniable, and I think that when you really commit yourself to being funny and speaking, you know, telling your story your way, your people will find you. You know, I go in front of audiences that old white men come up to me and like, oh my God, you make me laugh so much. I think you're so funny. I never knew that about Puerto Ricans, or that's a very interesting way of looking at NASA, you know, like, because my jokes range.
Yeah.
Right? But
you gotta hit the NASA joke, you know?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But you know, there's just it's just finding your people. Sure, there are a lot of misogynist men. They live in the Netflix comment section. They live there. Women are
Really?
funny. Any woman, you'll see the same guys. See, this is why women aren't funny, because they feel threatened or whatever. But they don't think anything's funny other than the things that resonate with the way they think, and it usually is low vibrational. So why do you want to appeal to those people anyway? Those are the people that want to hear fart jokes. They want to hear the basic, you know, all women get drunk, and they all, you know, when women get drunk, they all do the same thing. Like that's not my people. So I don't care if they think I'm funny or not. I don't think they're gonna survive the apocalypse.
So I'm really curious because I'm not a stand-up, but I'm always been like, you're talking about like hecklers and trolls and things like that. Do you ever have like something prepared for them? Like you're like, yo, this guy says this thing, I'm gonna destroy him, or is it just like
No.
off the cuff?
It's off the cuff. I never, you know, and I don't have a lot of hecklers. I've had some, and the audience takes care of them for me.
That's
Which
great.
It's been really weird. It feels like I have my own 300 in Sparta, and they like ah. This
They
guy
throw him in the hole, yeah.
Yeah, I was in Dallas, and this guy had his feet on the stage, and his feet were like crossed.
yeah.
And I said, hey, can you move your feet off the stage? And he's like, I'm a white man. Don't talk to me like that. And I thought he was
Whoa.
joking, because I was like, this is corny. Like, he could. That audience, they did not stop until they kicked him out of the. One white woman was like, he needs to go. And I was like, you
crazy,
heard her. It was
That's some
funny.
wild main character syndrome. Jeez.
No,
Yeah.
it's low vibrational.
Okay, so can you share like a memorable experience from those early days, like a memory that made you feel like this is it, like I'm really hitting it, like I'm reaching that sort of thing I want to reach?
You know, I was thinking about it the other day. I did Last Comic Standing, and a lot of men in comedy discouraged me from doing that show. Big names who I shall not name.
Really?
But they were like, don't do that show. That's a reality show. You're a real comic. And I was like, are you going to take me on the road with you or your massive audiences? And they
Yeah, you gotta
weren't.
back it up.
So I was like, I'm going to go on Last Comic Standing. I'm going to write jokes, my jokes. I didn't pander. I didn't change. I just did my dark, regular humor. And I just remember, I didn't think I was going to go to the next level because I just didn't do comedy like most people. Even though Roseanne Barr was like, she's the one, most people were like, you know, we don't. They wanted to hear me do jokes about, you know, when I draw my eyebrow on, like with a Sharpie. Like they were expecting those jokes from me, and I can write whatever I want, but that's just not where I lean, right? And so I remember when they were calling out the finalists. I had taken my shoes off because I was getting ready to go home, and I wore heels, so I was changing into my sneakers because as soon as I get off anything, I put my sneakers on, and they called my name, and I froze for a minute, and this was on NBC, so the cameras, they were like all these cameramen everywhere, and I was just like, did he just say my name? And they were like, they just said your name, hurry up, and I had to change my shoes back and run out to the stage. And it was a nod, you know, it hadn't gone to the general public yet, but I really feel like Roseanne Barr really fought for me and Keenan Ivory Wayans, Russell Peters, those were the judges.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that they saw me, they saw my jokes. So that was a big moment for me. And then when they called me for the top 10, they said my name and I just stood there, and another person that was there moved, she thought she heard her name. And
Oh no.
it was awkward. You know, we had to reshoot it. And then I was like, oh, that was me. And I went, I had never seen anyone who looked like me in that position. You know, I have been watching Last Comic Standing. I had auditioned 3 times before. And that was a big moment for me because I know that people, not just Latinos, not just Afro-Latinos, not just Caribbeans, women, you know, and people who had a different sensibility in comedy could see someone that sounded like them and say, oh, yeah, we got
We
one.
can do, yeah. That's awesome. And so like post Last Comic Standing, like how did that change your career? Was there a notable like, oh, my trajectory is like going this way now? Like,
Last Comic Standing made a very big difference in my career, despite what the naysayers said. I became an official headliner. I wasn't opening anymore. And you know, just to shed light, which people don't realize, openers have to fly themselves out. Usually they'll get a hotel. Sometimes some headliners are not real cool, and they don't get their openers hotels. They have to pay for their own food, and they only get paid between $50 and $100 a show. So you put a plane ticket, you know, and I like to shed light on that because the openers, comedians don't have a union. I think those of us who are headliners should make way for those people who are opening. So that's where I was. And so I moved into the category of headliner where the pay became significantly more. Not significantly enough for me to be getting equal pay, but I was making more money where I could go out and headline.
yeah. I'm really curious because obviously, again, not a stand-up, but like when you pick your opener, like what is the process of that? Is it like people you want to put on, or is it like
Yeah.
someone's like, hey, by the way, you should put this person up there? Like how does that sort of process work?
Well, unlike a lot of my fellow comedians, I like to pick people that I want to be on the road with,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
but
yeah, you
people
gotta
who are
hang with
also
them,
think
yeah.
are funny. And a lot of people have different things. They pick people who are not that funny so they don't feel threatened by them.
Oh,
Or they'll go get someone who
strategy.
has a lot of followers so they can help them sell tickets. Like there's different things. Obviously, I ain't doing that. So I have a comedian that I work with. I have my own cluster of comics, like Ramon Rivas, who I think is brilliant. He's a very alty comic. Antoine Young, who's a one-liner comic. Like comedians that have different styles of comedy than me, so that you know you can get a variety at the show. And there are a lot of women that I work with too that I think are really funny. I worked with Gadiel Del Orbe, Sasha Merci, Gloria Liz Mora, like
Sasha.
Latinos.
Sasha's great, yeah.
And then I have my guys that, you know, like John Rudnitsky opened for me.
Oh,
He
he's
went
great.
To, yeah, he went to.
He's a good character guy too. Yeah.
He's a very good character guy. You know, I've worked with a lot of comedians. Jimmy O Yang has come and done
another
my
one, great one,
shows. And now they're all blew up. I mean, listen, if you want to make it, open for Aida
Open for you.
Rodriguez. They
That's
are
it.
all more famous than me now.
Yeah, so obviously talking about you're Puerto Rican and Dominican. I want to get into like how does that play into your comedy? Do you think that's like a big part of your identity when it comes to like the jokes or like the joke creation or inspiration?
Well, the majority of my jokes, as someone is using my comedy in their curriculum in a university, and so most of my jokes, from what I was told, are more leaning towards feminism and women and women's rights. And though I explore the, you know, the intersectionality of that within the Latino community, a lot of machismo and all of that stuff. But I write about what I want to write about. Like I have jokes about, you know, DNA tests. I talk a lot about race and I talk a lot about gender. It's just naturally who I am. I have sat down sometimes and said, I'm just gonna write a bunch of silly jokes. You know, that's it. This is getting too heavy. You know, they're beating me up on social media. And then I'll sit down and I'll write a joke, and then the joke be about, you know, food, and then it ends up being about how women get mistreated in restaurants.
Yeah.
So I can't help it.
Yeah.
But my identity does play in there. One thing that was very prevalent when I first started doing stand-up is hearing white people tell me in comedy, don't write about the Latino experience. It is exclusive, and then, you know, then you'll become one of those comics. And so then my objective became to defy that, because I should be able to. I have one of my good friends in comedy is a white woman that's Polish, and she talked about being Polish, and nobody was like, she's one of those comedians.
Yeah.
So I just didn't perpetuate that white supremacy thought, and I just wrote about what I wanted to write about, also giving people insight into who we are. As where, you know, one of my jokes was it took a hurricane for people to know that Puerto Ricans were American. You know, a lot of people didn't know we were Americans.
I still, like, I chat a lot about politics on Twitter, and the amount of people that are like, go back to your country, and I'm like, it's the same one, bro. Like, it's the same one, you know?
Guess who's getting deported? That was a tweet, and it got a lot of retweets, and I was like, I was born in Boston.
That's crazy.
That is one of the most American cities.
But that's like also, it's so funny when they tell you not to do something specific about your culture, because like I feel like comedy is taking something specific and making it like, you know, where everybody can understand it and everybody can like get the joke. But I'm also really curious, because this is something I've always like sort of dabbled with my, you know, Puerto Rican family. A lot of them don't speak English. Have you done a lot of shows that are like, and this is sort of a trend now, that are like in Spanish or predominantly Spanish audiences? And
I have. I've
or
done
Latino
shows in
audiences?
Spanish. Oh yeah,
And
I've
is
done
it like, is it different? Like, is it
Yeah.
hard, you know, like, what's the sort of like big differences between like your general audience and like any US city, or doing it for people that specifically speak Spanish? Yeah.
So I've done stand-up in Puerto Rico. I've done it in the Dominican Republic. You can watch it on the special on HBO. We recorded it because we did a documentary that accompanies the special. You know, I've done Locos y Contentos. I've done stand-up in Spanish for Spanish television. It's very different. The sensibility is different. Spanish stand-up is now catching up in terms of storytelling. Before it used to be super joke-driven, very slapsticky. Culturally,
physical,
you know, the stuff we were watching on television, it was, I wouldn't say behind, I would just say different, because the sensibility in Spanish is very different. When you translate some of these jokes, you know, the collective, like I have jokes about my grandmother, and I call my grandmother a bitch. I can't do that in Spanish.
Yeah,
I would
obviously,
get booed or beat up.
Yeah, my
you don't
grandma
talk
would kill
about,
me.
Yeah, you don't talk about
Rita would
grandmas.
smack me up, yeah.
But the sensibility is different, and if you want to do stand-up in Spanish, you got to be sensitive to that.
This is a sort of side question. It's not on here. I've just always been curious, because like I know when I visit Puerto Rico, like the idea of like island fame, right? Like there's so many things that exist in Puerto Rico and they don't exist on the mainland. And so I'm curious, like, have you ever experienced that? Have you ever like met someone there that's like popped off, but they like have never broken into the U.S., or have you gotten like famous on the island and it's been like trippy for you? Like, have you ever?
Well, I was
dealt with it?
surprised that they knew who I was when I went to the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. Actually, in my analytics, the Dominican Republic is the country that follows me the most outside of the United States, which I had no idea of. But I think it's interesting, you know, when I went to Puerto Rico, in some places, some people knew I was, and then in some places, I was like the father in Coming to America when he went into the barbershop, and he was like, "Hello, I am King Joffrey, King Azamunda." And they were like, "All right, take the number. There are 8 people in front of you." I felt like that. I was like, "Oh, okay." But I don't have expectations of anybody knowing who I am. I think the fact that I'm insecure is what feeds my comic. And I don't ever want to lose that. Every time
That's
I see a
great.
cocky comic, they look goofier than they were when they first started. You know, and I see this, you know, comedians like, I'm famous now, I'm sexy. I'm like, it kills
All
the
right.
comedy.
Yeah. Good for you. No, I know with my mom was like really good friends with some like local weather person who was like very famous in Puerto Rico. And she came to visit us in Fort Lauderdale and was like mad that nobody knew who she was.
no.
And I was like, this is crazy.
That's sad.
So I know you did Last Comic Standing, but you also did, is it They Ready was the name
They
of the
Ready
program?
for-
What was like the big difference for that? How would your career changed in between the two programs?
So that was the big one. I would say Netflix had such a big viewership. I know that mine did really well. The numbers were like really, really good. I know someone who worked at Netflix, and they
And they just, like, they told you everything?
They told me my
Yeah.
numbers, but
good.
which was really competitive with comedians. The whole series as a whole did very well. That first season was, it did really, really well numbers wise, millions, and so that visibility. Tiffany was a megastar at that moment. That was the height of her career. She was presenting her friends, and it just took off. That's when I started, meeting with people. People knew who I was. I started developing TV shows for major networks. I got my deal. It was really big.
That's awesome.
But it also, more importantly, not more importantly, but also very importantly, it made my quote go up as a headliner.
And that's the most important part, obviously.
Yeah, because you know what? When you're developing a TV show, you don't get paid for auditions.
No, yeah.
This is your bread and butter, right? And so it just increased my salary.
And how do you feel like has your process of like writing material from like back in the early days to now, has it changed? Have you like figured out your things that work? Like, is it easier to like come to jokes now, or is it like no?
It's harder to come to jokes now because the internet exists, and a lot of people think that, I've heard people arguing about jokes, like famous people, and I'm like, that's a stock joke. Like that's not your joke. That's not your joke. Johnny Carson did that on a sketch, 20, 30 years ago. But I study comedy, and so it's really hard to write a joke now. Not because of political correctness, not because you don't want to get canceled. I do think that as we evolve, we should just grow and get better and smarter. That's just natural evolution. It has nothing to do with race or gender, just about humanity. As you become a better person, maybe you've been socialized to think, hey, it's not cool to make fun of people who are divergent or people, because it was because we can identify now and say, oh, it's because I'm feeling insecure about myself. It feels better if I make fun of somebody else, so that makes me feel better about myself because I don't feel good about myself. Those are things. That's evolution, and I respect Cat Williams for saying that, because Cat Williams did say that when they said, well, are you worried about political correctness? And he was like, no, because there are some things we shouldn't be saying now that we said 20 years ago. We should get better. But I just think it's complicated because there's so much content out there, and being original sometimes gets in the way of being funny. People want to be like, oh my goodness, I got to say something that's never been said. And I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, that was my next like sort of string of questions, is like the internet, and like how from when you started to now, how has that like changed the stand-up scene for you, or comedy in general, really?
I'm always they complain about me all the time. I don't put my new stand-up on the internet. I never have. If you see it on the internet, it's been on a special. It's been on HBO, it's been on Netflix, it's been on Showtime. My new material, I never put it, I don't test it. I'm working on a special right now, and I won't put any of those jokes because they go stale. If they go viral, you can't use them for the special. And I really respect and value my specials. My specials are my album. That's my thriller. That's my Beat It. So and I say that lightly, not that I'm comparing myself to Michael Jackson, because people, oh, she thinks she's, no, but we were both born on August 29th though. But we were.
Fair.
But I don't put
spirits,
new material on the internet. And now I've been writing jokes just for the internet. And I feel like I'm an idiocracy, because I don't want to write jokes with the assumption that most people are dumb, which is what a lot of people do. They're like, oh yeah, just write a joke about Big Macs. It's gonna go. I don't want to do that. I always want to believe that people will answer to a higher calling, and that most people are not dumb, that most people who are dumb just happen to be on the internet and it amplifies it, but the most people are not. And most people are not evil. Most people are not, malicious. So I have a hard time with the internet, and you know, my management, they're like, you got to get on it. So we've been doing like sketches, but my sketches always have a message. Like we did a sketch that I came up with that we just released about hip hop, a hip hop rap battle, and the two rappers are rapping, but they only diss each other about their women, their wives, and so. And it's because hip hop has become that, and so the whole thing is they're rapping, but they don't say anything about each other. It's like, your wife is a whore, your wife is this, your wife, and we're like, what do we got to do with this? And they're like, that's just hip hop. So my sketches are always gonna be about something that I just don't feel like insulting the intelligence of the average human. It's not I don't get off on that.
So with the internet now, this is also, I'm just curious, like, do you feel like, because like obviously you know how to perform live, like you've done it for years and you know how to like win over a crowd. How do you feel about like these new stand-ups that are like starting on TikTok and then trying to figure out live, or shooting things live specifically for TikTok, and you can tell they're like not appealing to this audience, but it's like, oh, you have someone in the front row like filming them to put it on there. How does that like make you feel about shows and things like that now?
You know, I will say this, like I know Matt Rife. Matt Rife always comes up because Matt Rife is like the biggest comedian in the world from TikTok. Matt was a stand-up for many years, which a lot of people don't know. He didn't start on TikTok. He started on the grind as a 16-year-old child going out there with the adults, writing the jokes. He figured out a way to get himself out into the masses. Sometimes that's not as favorable as it looks, because now has people coming to his shows that just want to yell out stuff so they can be in videos and, you know, and all of that stuff. I think stand-up is an art form, and like I said, it's a science, and if you really want to be down with it, you're in it for the long haul, and you're in it for what it really is. And when those people come to the shows, they get seen out. Security sees them out. I perform at the Comedy Cellar. Those security guards, they don't play that. But I feel like if you want to be a stand-up comic, a real stand-up comic, you will write the jokes, you will take the hits, you will fall and get back up, and you will do it over and over again, just like the rest of us. There's just a bunch of people who want to be famous, and and TikTok, right? And it's not just comics. It's bakers. There are chiropractors who are like superstars on like Crack Your Back, the Crack Master, and all of that. Everybody who wants to be famous now has an outlet.
And they all have like a semblance of comedy, right? Like they all have to like add that little hook.
Oh,
like,
absolutely. I just feel like the clubs are the ones that are like, come see your favorite chiropractor this weekend. And it takes up the weekend of a
That would be crazy
comedian.
if the improv is just chiropractors.
Oh my God. I mean, I don't know. Listen, I've seen the hypnotists, the magicians.
I've seen that.
You know, and all of that. It really occupies the space. 'Cause there's a disrespect for stand-up comedy, but stand-up comedy is, you know, the commentary of society, what's happening now, not just politically, socially. George Carlin was trending on TikTok and trends on TikTok all the time. They don't even know. They're like, yo, listen to this man. They don't even know who he is when he was talking about, you know, reproductive rights and all of that stuff. I think the trash always sees itself out. And I say that not to be condescending, but it just sees its way out. Like I think eventually all of those people, you remember when Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie were like the thing, and it was the reality thing.
So was it Surreal Life?
Yeah, they were like doing, and now
Simple Life. Simple Life?
People are like, yo, who is she? The DJ. They don't even know her like that. I think eventually real art always, you know, I was in Paris 2 weeks ago and I went to see the Mona Lisa and the Venus de Milo.
Subtle flex, yeah.
Yeah, it's a flex, but the line was around the corner.
Yeah.
Nobody was like, yo, who is this bitch with no arms? You know what I mean? They were like, hey, this is art. This is beautiful. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
And so I do want to tackle too, like social issues and things. Like I know it's something you're passionate about. We've talked about it a lot today. How do you sort of bring that into the sort of comedy fold? Like, what's your way of doing it where it doesn't feel so like hitting it so hard on the nose?
I use my personal experiences. So I talk about sexism. I talk about my personal experiences. You know, I was married to a Muslim man, and you know, he tried to make me wear hijab, and I was like, "You first is hot.
You
like,
first.
But it, you know, and people get offended, and they're like, "Oh, you're talking about this," but that was my experience.
Yeah.
So if you're offended by my experience, that's your problem, because this is my life I'm talking about. I'm not talking about all the Muslims. I'm talking about the one who messed up my life. You know.
And you're a mom, right?
I am.
And how does that sort of like, has your comedy changed from being a parent now? Like, how does that sort of play into you? And
Yeah,
your
there
sort
was
of
a lot of jokes.
persona? Yeah.
There was a lot of jokes about, and I had to see my way out of that mom comic thing because I was like, I have a lot to say that goes far beyond that. But it's just part of, we're full human beings. Like Dave Chappelle is a father. You don't hear people saying, he's a dad comic. Like
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
just you gotta make sure that you write your way. You're in the scope of your full humanity as opposed to just one. Some people.
And kids, it's personal experience too. It's
Yeah.
like, well, now you're a mom. That's a whole like a plethora of experiences that you can talk from. I think the last time I hadn't seen Zach Galifianakis perform in forever, and he popped in at a show at the Largo, and nobody knew what to expect. He just showed up and he pulls out like a little notebook and he's like, "This is just like stuff my son has said or done in the last, like or my kid has done in the
Yeah.
last few months," and it was hilarious. And it's like I didn't think like, oh, dad comedian. I was just like, yeah, that's
where
crazy
he is
stuff he's been
now.
experiencing. Yeah.
I love him.
If you were to look at your career and sort of a span, what is like one of the most rewarding moments to you? Like something where you learn the most, or like where you look back and you're like, damn, like I made it. Like what was that moment for you?
So I don't think I'll ever think I made it. I don't think that serves me as a comedian. I think comedians evolve until they die. I think you just want to continue to write and innovate. I will say for me, I've had people come up to me. This woman, I'll never forget, at the Improv came up to me after a show. I thought she was going to try to fight me or beat me up
no.
or something.
Yeah.
And she goes, Ida, I want to talk to you right now. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then she says, listen, she's like, 2 weeks ago, my son hung himself in my backyard. And she said, and this is the first time I've laughed since that happened. She said, I will love you forever. And I was like,
Damn, that's so strong. Yeah.
that is what I do it for the healing part, not for the, the laughs, yes, but just to see this woman, I don't even know how I would handle a situation like that, but just to hear, I had a very big actress, A-list, I didn't even knew who I was, send me a message and said, hey, I saw you at the Improv. I didn't know she was there. I don't know where they hit her. And she was like, you were talking about your battle with anorexia. And she's like, I struggle with it really badly. She said, and I was going to binge that night, and instead I went to a meeting the next morning, so thank you so much.
Damn.
Those things like that, for me, matter more than everything else, because you sit down and you write those jokes and you want people to laugh, but you want them to laugh with you, not at you. And just to know that, this person that I look up to and whose career I envy and wish I would have at one point is going through the same exact thing I was going through as a woman trying to meet a body standard that was unrealistic. And it was just, those are the rewarding things for me.
That's really sweet. And for people coming up now, do you have any sort of advice or like wisdom or tips you would want to give them about like how you came up or things that worked for you? Yeah.
I always just tell newer comics, like, go as you, because you are going to eventually show up anyway. Like, people go on stage and do their best impression of a comic. Like, they'll hit the thing on their leg, like they see Dave Chappelle do that. Or, they'll laugh at their own joke. Or they're doing their greatest impression of what they think a comedian is supposed to be on stage. And people want to see, unique energies. That if you look at all the like superstar comics that are on the Hall of Fame wall, Red Fox is nothing like Sam Kinison. They're all very different and very unique, and that's why people love them. You don't ever look at comedians and like these are two the same. You'll say, oh, he's a hack. He's trying to be Dane Cook. But the people that are the magical ones are the ones who perfected the art of being themselves. And if you want to be a great comic, that's what you got to work on above all things, because people buy into you and then into what you're selling, and then you focus on your funny. But you got to be comfortable in your own skin, and you can never quit, because you gotta weather the storms.
Damn, I love that. All right, well, let's hit these 20 questions. I'll do them super fast, just like 1 to 5 word answers, whatever you're
Okay.
feeling. Least favorite job you've ever had?
Bank teller. I never ever balanced, not one day, and they let me keep coming back.
That's crazy. Most used emoji.
The most used emoji for me is the prayer hands. That
prayer
I was
hands.
taught by social media that that's the best response to all the comments.
Classic.
just hit them with the hands.
Your current favorite TV show.
My current favorite TV show is House of Dragons.
Yeah.
I'm a Game of Thrones
You're
head,
caught
so
up?
I got to get my fix where I can.
It's good. I hate when they do like the sort of like holdover episodes that they're just moving you along. Like I just want to see the fights, bro.
Yeah,
'Cause the
me
dragon fights have been sick.
Absolutely.
Guilty pleasure TV show.
Guilty pleasure TV show, The Blacklist. I love James Spader.
Haven't seen it. Okay, cool. And what kind of phone was your first cell phone?
I was poor, so my first cell phone was like a Nokia something.
Same.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, first celeb crush.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Born on the same day.
That's right. I wrote my first script I ever wrote was my wedding to Michael Jackson. I was
A whole script, like a
Yeah.
movie?
Yeah, I wrote it. It was really bad. The characters were in parentheses. This is what they said, quotation marks. Yes.
That's really cute. Last movie that made you cry.
The last movie that made me cry was Past Lives.
Oh man. You know the writer that wrote that movie, her husband wrote Challengers.
Really?
And I'm like, y'all got like a 3 thing going on. Like there's a lot of 3s. I'm just saying, like, something's up. They gotta like talk to whoever that person is.
They get movies made. They
Right?
get it's working.
I'm like, all right. Best fast food restaurant and what your order is there.
So my best fast food restaurant, I wouldn't say best, but my favorite fast food restaurant is always going to be McDonald's
course.
because I identify McDonald's with my grandmother, and it's a fish fillet, French fries, and an orange drink.
So one of my best friends, we became best friends because we were in line at McDonald's, and I was like, "What's your order?" And he goes, "Diet Coke, fillet of fish, nuggets." And that's my
It's
exact
fillet.
order.
I say fish fillet because
Fish fillet.
my
Yeah.
grandmother said fish fillet because in Spanish it's
Yeah, you have to say it,
arrebe.
yeah.
So it stayed that, but that's how I order
That's
it.
crazy. Is this a Puerto Rican thing or no? Because
I
I
think
love
so.
it. I love it. And to this day, and someone told me it's technically, I don't know why I know this, it's technically the healthiest thing on the menu because it's the only thing that has like some like ocean and wildlife certification. Like they have to
Oh,
like,
yeah.
has to be a certain quality. So now I always say that because everybody's like, that's gross. And I'm like, it's not gross. It's healthy.
It's better.
Yeah. If you could meet any comedian dead or alive.
I would meet George Carlin.
George Carlin. And then all-time favorite comedy movie.
My all-time favorite comedy movie is Greedy with Michael J. Fox.
Amazing.
Phil Hartman, though, if you haven't seen it, you need
Yeah.
to see it.
And then Drake or Kendrick. If you don't want to take a side, we can always bleep it out. I'm just curious, Drake or Kendrick?
I refuse to participate in that
No
foolishness.
participation.
Yeah, I just think I remember when everybody loved Drake, and to see the people who love Drake now hate Drake is just very interesting to me. I love Kendrick Lamar. I think they serve 2 different purposes. This is, like, I don't know. I really felt low vibrational when it came to that. It got really, and they were just shitting on women. It was like you
Oh, yeah, it's
you
your
a
video.
pedophile. You beat women, and everybody was like, "That's my guy."
Yeah.
But I just refuse. I feel like when you get big enough for them to hate you, and they'll just turn on you like they did to Drake. And now Drake's not even black anymore. It's just really, I don't want nothing.
I'm honestly even shocked they participated in it. I feel like it's like, dude, you guys are so big, just like.
At
move
first,
on,
I
man.
thought they were like
I thought they
in
were
on
gonna put
it.
out an album. Yeah, that's
They
what you
were
always
in on
think,
it. They were like,
right?
"Hey, let's do this beef." But then it was like, "Yo, mama,"
That's
and
like
I
the
was
Kanye
like,
of
"Hey."
it all. It's like anytime Kanye does something, I'm like, well, the big album's gonna come out, and then they never come out, and then you're like, never mind, bro.
It sounded rageful.
Yeah.
It just sounded like a lot of unhealed people. I don't want to participate in it. But I think Kendrick won I have to tell the truth.
Yeah, he won.
Kendrick won the rap battle.
We all know he won. He won.
Because,
Yeah.
I mean, he like stumped on the grave and
Yeah.
came back and crip walked.
He's still going. He got a music video too. It's like it just keeps going. It's never gonna
Yeah.
stop. Animation or real people?
To watch?
Yeah, it's just like biggest personal preference. This one was I threw this one in just because like I personally my go-to
It
is cartoons.
depends. It depends for me. I mean, I watch more real people, but I would say real people if I'm honest.
If you got cast in a biopic, or if there was a biopic, who would you be playing?
I would be playing this Ethiopian princess or queen who I was named after, who was
wow.
so powerful that she was it was a matriarch and she was beheaded by the men. They
Was that what there's a
conspired.
musical, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen it, but I know I've like seen posters for it. I was very curious. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Describe your sense of humor in 2 words.
Too much.
Too much? That's it. I'll take that. Favorite social media platform from any time period.
It used to be Twitter when it was Twitter. I used to really love Twitter because I used to practice my jokes on there, and then it became something else. But it was Twitter. Oh, Twitter, not X. I haven't been on it for 2 years, so I don't even know what it is.
I used to get all my news from like old Twitter, and now I'm like, bro, none of this is real.
Yeah.
And then, who's the funniest person you know? It doesn't have to be a comedian, just anybody.
My grandmother was the funniest person I knew. She was undoubtedly
It's really sweet.
and her sensibility of comedy was so advanced for someone who didn't know how to read. She was illiterate, but some of the things that would come out of her mouth, I know that's where I got it from. I'm like, she was brilliant.
And before we wrap up, do you have anything you want to plug?
So I have a book right now that came out, a HarperCollins book called Legitimate Kid. The paperback comes out in October. It's out in English and in Spanish, Puerto Rican Spanish, by the way.
Good. So a little bit of Spanglish, basically.
It's a little Spanish. And I'm currently on tour, so I'm funnyaida.com is, I'm going to Cleveland, I'm going to New York, I'm going to Boston, San Jose. So I'm plugging those dates.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Aida, for joining us. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Follow us for more content like this at Funny or Die. And a final question for my guest, just one word answer. Is the internet good or bad?
Bad.
Thank you so much. We'll catch you soon.